My name is Ellen Lindsay. I'm the executive director here at AMSA. I have been at the charter school at AMSA Charter for 5 years. I started as a school counselor, so that's my background. Oftentimes when you hear me speak, I will sound like a guidance counselor to you. So that's kind of my heart and soul. And so I believe in mediation and talking and sharing thoughts and feelings. So that's how we try to run our business. And I was the vice principal for a while. I was the principal for 2 years, and then co-led the school with Dr. Lewis. And I am the executive director and have been in this position for 1.5 years now. So that is my introduction. I want to let you know that when we ran this family forum yesterday afternoon, we had 190 folks. We're up to 97 now, but we had 190 that attended. And we had so many questions that came in before the forum that what we've done is Brianna and I have split up the topics, and we're going to run through the main topics. And then we're going to run a part 2 family forum in 2 weeks. And then after that, we're going to do them monthly. You'll see from some of the answers that we give is that we don't have all the answers yet. Our plan for remote learning was approved by the board on August 6th. And then Brianna and I both took about a week of no school time, took a week off. And so we've really dug our heels in and are getting all the details ironed out right now. One of the things that I've been thinking about lately is that, in the spring when everything happened, it was kind of a surprise. And, we've put together the best program that we could, taking the guidance from the state. And we created a quick remote system that we used. And then over the summer, we spent the summer really trying to create these 3 plans that the state wanted us to create. And then spent a lot of time really pondering that and the decision that laid ahead for us. And I will say that for all our years in education, I just have never experienced such a challenging time, honestly, in my life. The weight of making a decision for our community was probably one of the most difficult things that I have ever had to do. And the weight of that decision, I feel rests very heavily on my shoulders, because it can be potentially a decision of life and death for staff members, for our kids, for their parents, their grandparents, in our larger community. So we didn't make any decision lightly, and we made the decision that we felt was best for the AMSA community. I will say that Governor Baker announced on Monday that about 30% of the Massachusetts public schools are going remote, fully remote, at least to start, going in with this phased kind of system that we've been talking about. And so we're certainly not alone in the state. And we think we have a really great system in place. We are still working out the details, because as Brianna and I were talking earlier today, what we realize is we're creating a whole nother school. So AMSA, at its best, is a school of, I call it, brick and mortar school, right? With whiteboards and chalkboards and teachers teaching kids face to face. That's where our magic happens. For those of you who have been around for a long time, you know the quality of our teachers, you know the passion with which they teach, and that's our magic. And our goal is to get our kids back into the classroom in a healthy and safe way, and to get them back in front of our teachers, because we think really that that's where our curriculum shines. In the meantime, our teachers are working very hard, taking all of that curriculum that they have in lesson plans, and they're turning it into remote models. And they're doing a great job. Many of them have been working all summer. They'll certainly be working in the weeks ahead. And but as administrators, we are taking all of these, every decision that's been made in the last 15 years and improved upon each year has to be looked at again. And we have to make decisions on just about everything. So it's a lot to consider, and we're working hard to get all those decisions made and everything ironed out. So the family forum that we have 2 weeks from now, we're going to have more definitive answers for you than we may have tonight. But we'll share with you what we have. We certainly pride ourselves on being transparent and having our community part of the knowledge that we have. So I want to say that, so yesterday we got through all of the questions just about, and then the time ended as we want to be respectful of everyone's time. And that's why we are going to have a follow-up in 2 weeks. And this is live on Facebook right now. It's also being recorded, and we'll get out a paper version of your questions. Also want to let and welcome all of our new 6th grade parents, if any of you are here, and any new families that are with us from 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. We do have a few coming in from each of those grades. And we want to let you know that we will also be having a family forum like this just for our incoming students, so that we can address in more detail the information that you'll need to know. And also your 6th and 7th grade, 6th grade students and the new students will be having an orientation on the 14th of September, which we're in the midst of planning as well. So if we don't get to all of your questions as a new family, we will get some information out to you, and we will meet with you separately. We're also talking about doing student forums so that the students can meet with us and can ask any questions that they may have, because my guess is that their questions are maybe much different than yours. As I mentioned, this was really a very difficult decision, and it was difficult for so many reasons, and I mentioned it in the letter that I added into the back to school plan, was that there's just so much conflicting information. Even some of the science is conflicting. And until we have a better understanding of how having schools open again will affect the COVID situation, we feel, especially with the limitations for our facilities, that this is the best decision that we could make for our community. I mentioned yesterday that many sleepless nights went into this decision. When the decision was made that we would go back in a phased approach, I just felt right down into my gut that this was the right decision for our community. It's the safest way the best way to keep us as safe as we can. And I've had an outpouring of support from families, and I appreciate all the emails and messages. And when that board made the vote, my email and my phone blew up, and people felt cared for and supported. And more than anything else, that's how I want our community to feel. So I want you to know that I'm monitoring COVID very, very closely. Mike would tell you that I'm constantly looking at it. Mike Naraki, who I want to mention, isn't with us here tonight. He unexpectedly wasn't able to make it. He misses meeting you. And but he mentioned to the folks yesterday that I watch COVID numbers all the time. He's correct, I do. I know we're expecting out some new numbers and colors tonight. All of you are familiar with our colored map: the red, the yellow, the green, and the white. And I want you to be aware that AMSA has students coming from 33 different towns and cities in Massachusetts. So we have to watch and monitor what's happening in all 33 of those. Now, for some, it's a few students coming from those towns, but for many towns that are currently yellow, we have many, many students. For example, Marlborough is yellow right now. We have about 560 students. We have well over 100 students coming from Maynard, which is also yellow right now. A number of students coming from Worcester and Framingham. Many of our faculty come from Worcester as well. So we have to take all those things into consideration, the fact that we're a regional school and we're pulling from a lot of different towns. So we are definitely watching all of those. And I was on a call with the Commissioner Riley today, and he did talk about that, it's these maps, this red, green, yellow map is going to change week to week. and what area might be green one week, might be yellow another week, might be red, might be back to green, and that we should not just look at 1 week at a time, but that we need to look at how that's trending. At this point, those towns have held yellow for 2 weeks, and we'll see where we are. But I will continue to watch those. That is not a decision maker for us. It's just not. It's a data point that I will consider, but it will not make a decision for me, because I have to live with the decision that I make. So I want you to know that the back to school committee that created that plan consisted of about 67 people. A lot of people put a lot of time in on that this summer, from all areas of the school, administrative staff, many teachers, each working in their own specialty. And then we put together that plan. It has been approved by our board of directors. It's on the website. It has been seen and reviewed by the Department of Education with no comment or question. So now I'm going to move on to some of the questions that you had. I want to talk a little bit about communication. I mentioned in the back to school document that we will have a feedback coordinator. That is going to be Mark Vital. Many of you may know Mark as a teacher. He's also he was a teacher at AMSA for a number of years, about 8, I think. And for the last couple of years, he's been our community outreach manager. He works a lot of our corporations and local companies. And Mark also he coaches 3 seasons of track, for those of you who know Mark that way. But so Mark is going to be our feedback coordinator. We have an email address that's also listed in the back to school plan, AMSA remote feedback. I made it up, so I think that's it, at amsacs.org. Mark will be doing little pulse surveys with the students and with parents to get constant feedback on how the program is going. How if the students feel that they're getting what they need, if you feel like your students are getting what they need or maybe too much, we want to hear your feedback. And that will be a continual loop where you can send emails and feedback to Mark. He will monitor that. As issues come up, he's going to bring that to Brianna and to Mike and I, and we will address it. We want this to be the best program that's offered in the state, to be honest. And the way that we can do that is to continue to work together the way that we always have, so that we together as a community, our kids, our parents, and our staff can monitor what's happening and make this a really great, tight academic program. And I think this is going to be a big piece. So you'll be hearing from Mark. When you see his they may be 1 or 2 question surveys. These will not be 50 question surveys. It's going to take a lot of your time. These are going to be little pulse surveys where we're checking in different things to make sure that things are going well for all of you at home. Also, Mike Finkel, our communications manager, who does everything to make us look presentable to the world. Mike Finkel will be starting to get out those weekly newsletters. Now, you may remember Mike's been doing those for years. We stopped sending out the weekly newsletters in the spring, and then what you were receiving weekly were letters from Mike Naraki, myself, and Brianna. We're going to go back to the newsletter format because honestly, it's more fun, and it is more engaging, and hopefully kids will send pictures from home and videos and things like that he can add in there. And he will start those up, and then the information that Mike, Brianna, and I would normally put in that weekly newsletter, that will go in there, and it will be at the top. So those newsletters, don't delete them. They will be very important, because that's how we'll get a lot of our information out to you, and on Facebook and Instagram and all those kind of things too. Also, we are going to be creating training videos for parents on some of our new technology. So all of our teachers are going to be using Google Suite. In the past, there's been parents who've been around for a while know that we've had all kinds of things with people using different systems. But from this point forward this year, the teachers will all be using Google Suite. The grades will still go into Plus Portal. They have to go into Plus Portal because that's how we do the grade reporting to the state, because that's our student information system. But they will be using the Google Suite and Google Classroom, and you will get guardian permission so that you will be able to monitor things as the parent and guardians. We bought a very secured version of Zoom, which we're on tonight. This is the encrypted version. And so it's very secure, much more than the original free versions. We've actually paid for the subscription for this year. And what I love about Zoom as a participant, I spend a lot of time on Zoom, and it's very interactive. There's all kinds of things that you can do. I showed the parents the other night that I can clap my hands and I can give you a thumbs up. And there's all kinds of other things that you can add in. And there's also, yes, I agree, Amanda, it is so much better. And there's actually breakout rooms. So if a teacher has, let's say, a class of 24, they can put something in there that says randomize and set up, groups of 4, and it sends their pictures, their digital person automatically into these little discussion rooms. And then the teacher can go from room to room into these small work groups. So I think that that's going to be helpful too. And there's different ways that they can survey the kids. They can ask a question, give them a choice of answers, and survey their knowledge and that. It's a much more interactive, engaging platform, honestly, than Google Meet is behind them. I will say it. So we will also create these videos, training videos for you, so that you'll know how to use the products as well. And a parent last night asked if we could do a virtual back to school night. We usually do those in the fall, in September, and we hadn't thought of that. So we love that idea, and we're going to work on the logistics of putting that together. And I think that that's a great example of where our community can really help each other through this time. Because honestly, Mike, Brianna, and I cannot think of every detail that you need to know. Sometimes we think of things. There's been a lot of questions around uniforms, and our kid's going to need to wear uniforms. Brianna's going to talk a little bit about it, but during remote. And to us, we're like, oh, well, no. Like, we think that's would be just natural knowledge because we're in it all the time. So when we get questions from you, it's really helpful. It's really, really helpful to help guide us in what we need to be paying attention to. And you may think of great ideas that we don't, because we're kind of stuck in the middle of it. So keep that feedback coming, and keep talking to us and asking questions, because they help guide our work. For testing, we had some questions around PSATs and MCAS. MCAS, that's all going to be a state decision, and Commissioner Riley's not willing and ready to make that decision yet. It would be, for a while last June-ish time, he talked about redoing some of the MCAS from the spring, maybe in January, but he's not talking about that anymore. So we're just going to let them make that decision, and we will follow whatever. Obviously, the MCAS, we've got to do it if they do it. PSATs for our older students, we do 9th, 10th, and 11th grade PSATs. I've been talking to Kate Driver, who's our Director of School Counseling, about PSAT. The test is scheduled for October. College Board is still setting the regulations and the suggestions around that and what our options are going to be. They're offering potentially a Saturday test. We usually do Wednesday tests. We test all the kids during the day. I think Saturday test we think might be better because the parents and that will be able to drive the kids. But we're not sure what that's going to look like. If it's just going to be 11th graders, we want to do 11th graders because of the merit scholarship. But we've got to figure out logistics and how to do that. And so we're working on it, but we don't have all the answers on that. The HVAC system is always a topic of conversation to answer. For any of you who are new to the school community, our buildings are older. They're from the 1980s. The HVAC system, for the most part, is original to the building. We have problems often regulating our temperature. They are all old office buildings. The windows do not open. Some of them do in the lower school building. So we need to make sure that our air quality works for this COVID situation that we're dealing with. And the only way we really can do that is to have a full airflow study done on the 3 buildings, which we're in the process of getting bids on now. And we will be doing that. I've gotten permission from the landlord to have that work done. He has also been spending the summer. We're supposed to meet with him tomorrow, but I had to cancel that. I will see him next week. But he's been working on the lower school air conditioning system through July, and he's been working on it the last few weeks. So there is work going on there, and we're trying to make sure that building is going to have its air exchanges. And I've learned more about HVAC systems in the last few years, actually, than I ever thought that I would. But you need to have 10 air exchanges in a room. So the air needs to change out 10 times an hour, and we need to make sure that it is, and that the air is balanced in the building before. I don't want to put anyone in an unsafe situation until I know that the air is moving properly. Some folks asked about, well, is it possible? I mean, can we even do a hybrid system eventually? And the answer is yes. If we can get the air flow the air flow and the balance in the proper situation. No, I don't know. Sorry about that. If we can get that working properly, there we go. Then we can do a hybrid. We know that we cannot. We've measured out the rooms. We know that we cannot fit all the students, 100% of the students, in our rooms. And I've got a lot of details on that and how the square footage and all. We know we can't fit 100% of them if they have to be at least 3 feet apart. So, but we know that we can do a 50-50 or a third hybrid system. If you're curious on what that means, you can go back and read the back to school plan. But we can make that happen if we find that when the other schools open, that it hasn't caused spikes in those areas. What we don't want is AMSA to be the center of a cluster and of a spike because we opened our building too soon before they were ready, or before schools honestly were ready to be open. There has been some questions around 4 kicks, and is 4 kicks an option? 4 kicks is not an option. We have a great relationship with 4 kicks, and they are really so good to us. And in fact, we had our graduation outside on the field this summer, but we can't set up classrooms in there. Their livelihood are those fields, and you can't put chairs on them. They also use them for different things, and now I will talk a little bit about sports at the end, but we cannot set up classrooms in 4 kicks. So just not an option, and also we use it for gym when it's open. Had a question asked about COVID testing, and would the school be doing COVID testing? The state is not set up for that right now. They're working on that, but we know that Marlboro has free testing sites that folks can go to, but right now the schools are not testing sites. But he did mention today that they're working on that. There's some concerns, obviously, around technology, and there's a link out. It's on the website, but it will also be in the first newsletter, where if your child needs a Chromebook, or they need any other type of technology, that there's a link where you can order that, and our IT director, Erica Petrowski, will set you up with what they need. We'll lend you out the equipment. We lent out about 80 Chromebooks in the spring, and the kids got to take them and keep them over the summer. And so we will do the same thing. And also the same thing with Wi-Fi. If you're concerned about having a number of students, kids home using Wi-Fi, and you're using it for work as well, and you need any kind of hotspots or anything like that, just please let Erica Petrowski know. There's a suggestion about setting up a help desk during the day in case it was technology issues. I'm going to check into that. That's not something that we had thought of, so I will work on that. That's on my to-do list. So the big questions around science labs and how the thing's going to work with CAD and research. Research it's probably one of my favorite things about AMSA. I think that our research program really sets us apart. I think it will set us apart for Kids for College. Well, I could go back on about our research program. It's part of our new accountability plan. My goal is to expand it considerably, invest quite a bit of money into it is my hope. And so we want that up and running as fast as we can. And I did talk to Dr. Scott Giray today, who is the head of the science department and the computer science department, and he is working on this issue and how do we do that. I think it's probably going to take some time if we do start bringing kids in to do lab. We're not even sure how that would work. You can't share equipment. We don't have a lot of extra equipment, but I definitely spoke to Scott about that today, and he's going to work on that with his team. And art supplies, we've been asked about art supplies. We are working on art kits that would get picked up. We also, our school counseling director, Kate Driver, she's received a couple grants recently, but she received a grant to start a tutoring, a peer tutoring system that's been being developed over the summer, and we hope to get that activated for this fall, where our older students will be tutoring our younger students. And so we've received some grant money to get that program off and running. She also just received a grant for $93,000, and that is for a system to assist students who have been out of school for a considerable period of time to help them catch up. It also included $21,000 for our diversity and racism work that we will also be doing this year. We have hired a consultant to help us in that work, so we're very, very excited about that. And last but not least, before I turn the time over to Brianna, is sports. We've all been waiting to hear about the sports, and there was some guidance that came out on Friday from the EEA, which I am looking for who that is. Okay, Executive Office of the Energy and Environmental Affairs. They put together a multi-page guidance on sports and what they feel needs to be done. And then we received that guidance from MIAA and the Department of Education last night. And I spent time with Pete Jones, who is our athletic director, on Zoom today. And we will be putting together a proposal of what could potentially happen for fall sports. Now, interesting twist, they have decided that any school who is on a remote system will need to have their plan for sports voted on by the Board of Trustees. So we fall into that category. So Pete and I and Mike will be working on a proposal for our board to vote on the way that we feel that sports can potentially be done or not done in a safe way. So this is all very, very new. No decision has been made on how we're going to go forward with sports in the fall. There's a lot of different options. And from what Pete tells me, that there's many meetings that are going to be happening over the next couple of days to actually look at the way that each one of these sports is going to be modified. Because although that there's some things that they're saying that sports we're going to be able to do, they could have some pretty significant modifications to it. And they don't know what those modifications are going to be yet. So you will get an email invitation that you could participate in the public comment during the Board of Trustees meeting. We don't have a date for that yet, but it will be within the next 2 weeks. And if you are interested in sports and that's meaningful to you one way or the other, you're welcome to come to that, and we'll get more information out to you about when that meeting will take place. And I'm going to turn the time over to our Vice Principal, Brianna Murphy. She has a lot of different topics for you that may answer some of your questions.
Yeah, thanks, Ellen. Just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Brianna Murphy. I'm currently the Vice Principal. I started working at AMSA in 2012 and was originally hired as a history teacher, which I did for about 7 years. And then in March of 2019, I became the vice principal. So it's been just over a year now. going into the second full school year of doing that. And I have experience teaching AP, lower school, and upper school classes, so I definitely have seen the AMSA experience from a variety of perspectives in that time as well. So I'm going to start talking about the schedule because I think a lot of the questions kind of flow from that, and that will hopefully clear up some concerns right up front. And then I have a whole bunch of kind of random things too that we'll get to. So I will start with kind of the rationale behind the schedule that we created. So when we started this process back in late May or early June in creating a plan for a return to school, we thought it was a lot more likely that hybrid would be the safest option. Even I think on some level hoping for a full return. And then, as you all know, as the months have gone on, it's become clear that that would be harder and harder to do safely. So the way that the Academic Operations Committee that I facilitated approached this, and that committee included about 20 teachers from all departments and all grade levels. And the committee started by looking at the schedule and thinking about what schedule can we create that will be able to transition most smoothly between hybrid and fully remote. So that's a big reason why we created the block schedule, because one of the big concerns about the hybrid model is that if we are in person at all in any capacity, we want to make sure that we're limiting the mixing of populations as much as possible. So only having 4 classes a day in that block schedule would only mean 4 transitions a day, and therefore a lot fewer times, half the times, that students would be moving and mixing in the hallways and all of that. On the flip side, now that we're all remote, kind of on a similar note, we think it'd be good for, or will be good for students to make that transition, again, only 4 times a day, where they're going from, one class to another, in some cases on their own, if there won't be a parent or guardian at home. And it's, fewer transitions that they'll have to kind of shift and make, and, less things to manage within one day. So the schedule that we have starts with a Monday flex day. So that day will begin with a Monday morning check-in for half an hour. Students will be in small cohorts of about 10 to 12 students. We looked at the numbers. I think the plan says 12 to 14, but I think it will actually be closer to 10 to 12. And with one teacher that hopefully they'll be familiar with or is closer into their grade level. And this is really to start the week, set expectations, take attendance for the day, because this day is meant to be an academic day. And it's also a chance for that teacher who's facilitating that cohort to check in with your students, see them, see if their affect changes at all as the weeks go on, and help them to go about scheduling their day and setting goals for the week, and that kind of thing. The rest of that day, students will be able to go to teacher office hours. So we'll have all of the teachers make that information available. It can be used for group work, for independent work, but it's really a less structured day than the normal block schedule would be, so that students can really dedicate that time to doing work in preparation for the upcoming week. So teachers will be encouraged to assign work for the flex day that might help to fall in line with that idea of preparing for whatever is going to be covered in class that week. So you'll see on the block schedule, we have Blue Week and Orange Week. So the Blue Week will basically be chopping our day 1 and day 2, or even in odd days, in half. Then the Orange Week reverses that schedule so that each class will benefit from that academic workshop time. So you'll have a class for 70 minutes, first period, then academic workshop with the same group of students, same teacher. And this is time for independent work. The teacher will be there to ask questions of, but it provides a little bit of a break from that direct instruction. Still academic time to work on, again, independent work and homework related to that class. And then there will be a 15-minute break. We really encourage that students leave the screen for that 15-minute break to facilitate that, go outside, get a snack, do whatever, and then come back to go into their next 70-minute class. There's a 40-minute lunch break. We partially, some of the parts of the schedule we had to be concerned about teacher work hours according to our collective bargaining agreement with the teachers union. So that longer lunch break is part of that. Again, another longer or extended screen break for students too, which I think will be really beneficial for them. And because of the school day, having it from 11 to 11:40 is kind of the natural half of the day. So that, provides some of the rationale for how that was set up and selected. So again, every class period will benefit from that academic workshop at some point in time. So on Blue Week, it will be, the first period classes and the third period classes, and then that switches the following week. So every class on, that rotating basis will get that extra time at some point in the schedule. All right, moving on, the next few topics are going to go in probably a little bit more of a random order. Related to classes, the supply lists for 6th and 7th grade are being revised and updated. There isn't a list currently for 8th grade, but I think they're looking into creating one. There hasn't been one for 8th grade for a few years, but we know, with this new remote world, it might be helpful to know what supplies would be useful at home. We are going to do book return and distribution in the next couple weeks, so you'll be getting emails about that. Return will happen during the first week of September, and then distribution will happen the week after. Again, a lot more details to go out about that. We're also going to do a separate yearbook distribution day. Those students who ordered yearbooks for last school year have not received them yet. We're waiting to figure out the best time to do this. Obviously, we've been limiting as many times as we can, students coming onto campus and staff coming onto campus and all that. So we'll keep that as a separate day, again, very clear about when students can come and pick up their yearbooks, and that should be within the next couple weeks as well. We will still have 6th grade orientation. This will look different than it does in previous years, because kind of the main goal of that is to have students in the school building, touring the school, meeting their teachers, getting used to the schedule. So we'll probably do more of a half day for students on that Monday before classes begin on September 14th. A big part of this day will be getting their Plus portal and Gmail login so that they're set for their classes that begin the next day. We are looking into how to get the block schedule posted on Plus portals. The format's a little tricky, so hopefully we'll get that revised in the next couple weeks. And any new students, 6th graders, or anyone who's new to the school should be receiving their Plus portal login by that first week of September as well as their Gmail login. So there's been some questions around, since we are fully remote, how do we measure the effectiveness of instruction? It's a wonderful question. I think, as you all know, in the spring, no matter what school people were at, remote teaching is a completely new thing that teachers were tasked with learning how to do. For our school, we jumped into it right away, and I know some schools had more of a 2 or 3 week kind of waiting period to plan more, but we really wanted to make sure students weren't losing a lot of learning time. So that meant that our teachers were really learning in the moment. And I think that it was a tremendously instructive experience for them all. So they've taken that experience the summer as well. There's tons of PD out there that has been offered through all sorts of educational organizations to help teachers better instruct remotely, since that is the new reality for a lot of our places, or a lot of our schools. So teachers have been preparing to do that. We encourage the teachers to think about new ways of assessing student learning. Traditional pen and paper tests are obviously a lot harder to do remotely, so teachers have definitely been talking about how to better assess, maybe without that option, or not as much of a focus on that option as well. But it's something that we will also be talking about in our professional development that we're doing with teachers. We have 13 days of professional development with our returning staff and 15 with our new staff. Normally we only have 3 days or 5 days. So this is a big change. This is part of the reason why the school year was cut down, so that schools could really spend a lot of time focusing on teaching remotely or in that hybrid model. So we are absolutely going to use that to the fullest extent. We also will do professional development throughout the school year. On the flex days in the afternoons, teachers will be doing that about once a month. We have department meetings on a regular basis, grade level meetings as well. So those are all places where teachers can come together and discuss the methods of instruction that they're using. We are returning to our normal attendance policy. So students are expected to be in class every period, to stay there for the remainder of the entire period, and they will be submitting attendance or period attendance through Plus Portals, which is the normal process we use when we're in person. If there are any concerns, if a student has to be absent, if they're going to miss a period due to a doctor's appointment or something like that, they should contact the schools they normally would. We'll send out some instructions on what this process looks like, but students do need to have an excusal for an absence like they normally would. We know there's a lot of concerns about technology access. So those of you who have multiple children at our school as well, we understand that there'll probably be a little bit of a strain on Wi-Fi and connection and all that. If there are any issues, anything you come up against, even if it's mid-October and everything's fine and then something comes up, please contact us. I believe Mike Finkel put in the chat earlier the link for technology access issues. Communicate with your students' teachers as well. If there's a power outage randomly or something, just send an email. We're all adjusting to this. We're all understanding that issues are going to come up unexpectedly. So communication will be really key to help us get through that. I'm just going to look at my list briefly. I think I covered most things. Oh, there are a lot of questions about PE. PE will still be a class. I know that the PE teachers have already been talking about ways to use that block schedule and to do PE remotely. There'll probably be a little bit more of a focus on health and wellness, maybe some mindfulness to do that students can incorporate in their life outside of school as well, that I think will be really helpful, especially in this remote world. So all those things you can look forward to seeing what PE looks like. We are also going to have study hall still. We're still reviewing exactly what the expectations are going to be around that. At the very least, we most likely need to take attendance because of some of the expectations from the state. But whether or not we expect students to stay there and all that is something we're still reviewing. And related to that, senior privileges are also under review. A big senior privilege that we know our students love is when they have a study hall first or last period, they can miss that period so they can sleep in or leave early. So we're still looking into that to see how to kind of best manage that, again, remotely, because normally it requires students to sign out of school and all of that. So a little different, again, in a remote world. There are also concerns around extracurriculars. We are encouraging our club advisors to have clubs as they normally would, obviously remotely, but to find a way to transition to that remote format. This is obviously a big task. I think it works a little bit more smoothly with some clubs over others, but it's open to everyone to try to do on some level, so expect to see something like that. We also know clubs provide a really important social experience for our students. A lot of those leadership positions are a huge part of their goals and their lives and all of that, so we want to make sure we maintain that as much as we can. There's a student, I think yesterday, who asked about homecoming. There will not be homecoming in the fall, the homecoming dance, because we can't have big events like that in person, but if there's any way to do that in the spring, if we are back in the spring, I think we would definitely be open to rescheduling that. As you know, everything's kind of week to week or month to month at this point. So I would say anything that we can reformat in some way so that people don't completely miss a certain experience, we are open to doing. That was a big focus of a lot of our things that we planned with the seniors this year. So I think we're probably going to still keep that in mind as this year progresses. And let's see. Oh, two other random things, and then I think that's it.
I got a couple.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're not going to require uniforms, so we just expect that students dress appropriately. We'll send out some stuff on some guidelines on that. And then locker cleanouts. We know a lot of our students don't use lockers, especially the high school students, but they are more commonly used with the middle school. So our receptionists and some other administrative staff are going to work in the next few weeks to clean out lockers on their own. They're going to bag and tag all the items, and then we'll be able to return those items when students come to get their new books for the school year. So again, look for more information on that. And then I'm going to turn it back over to Ellen and just check my list and make sure I covered everything.
Yeah, we want to make sure that we had this yesterday. We had to split up 3 ways with Mike, and when we realized he wasn't going to be able to make it tonight, we were like, "Oh my goodness, what were his topics? We don't want to miss anything." But as Brianna was talking, and some of the questions that came up in chat, someone just asked about SAT prep. We have a group of teachers that do SAT prep. I imagine that you'll hear things from them. It will go out in the newsletter too. Watch that newsletter. All the information will be in one place and it will be there. And the SAT prep, I'm sure, will be advertised there once we get up and running. A couple of questions. Where's my little friend Zena and her mom? She asked the question. She's one of our drama thespians, and she asked about, well, if there was going to be sports. There you are. Hi, hon. If there's going to be sports, what about chorus and drama? And, you know, Zena, I had the same question myself today when I got the sports, and the thought that came into my head, whether this is a good thing for me to say or not. Those of you who don't know me, I typically say what's on my mind, and without much regard for getting myself in trouble. I would say that the sports folks have quite a lobby going on, Zena, and there isn't that kind of push and power to support the arts as to support the sports, and I'm actually a little disappointed in that, because if it's okay for kids to run down a field playing soccer, my boys played soccer, and I know how they push each other around on a field, then I'm not sure why you can't sing Fiddler on the Roof, to be perfectly honest. We talked about this earlier. And the only thing that I talked to actually Mr. Jones about it, and I think that the difference is maybe a couple things. One is that the guidance came out much sooner, and maybe they were being a little bit more conservative at that time. Or two, there's just so much more power behind sports, and that they were able to approve some things that really kind of surprised me. But I agree, Zena. So get a letter writing campaign going. Start sending your letters into the Department of Education. Get your friends, and put some letters together. Because the guidance that we've been given for chorus consists of kids being 10 feet apart and outside singing. So 10 feet all the way around you, and you have to be outside. But if I'm running cross country, there's going to be times that I'm running through the backwoods that there's not going to be 10 feet between 2 kids running, right? So I'm not sure where the equity is in that situation. So I will let that one go for the moment, but I'm thinking about you.
Thank you.
And class meetings. Brianna, did you mention class meetings? That was a topic that was on Mike's list.
Oh, yeah, I did not. So we are going to have class meetings on Mondays. That's another purpose that the Flex Day will serve. Traditionally, we only have the individual, junior class meeting or something at the very beginning of the year. I think, again, with this Flex Day, we have scheduled them out to have at least one per term. That, too, will help us check in with students. Attendance is going to be mandatory at those, too, so we will take attendance. But I'm really looking forward to these, because I think it'll be nice to connect with students more personally. I feel like we do a lot of emailing during the year because we try not to take time away from learning, but the Flex Day has a lot of new opportunities for us to engage with students. So I'm looking forward to that part of the schedule.
Yeah, we're definitely, we lost that time, and it's a time that we as administrators get a chance to know the kids. And there's things that we can do with them to help them to socialize a little bit with their class during that time too. So we're looking forward to that, and it will be a great use of some of our time on Mondays. And also the questions around counseling. Our school counselors will be, fully activated. They'll be available to do Zoom type meetings with students. There's a referral service will also be set up. They will be participating in our advisory program. They will also be holding different seminars for college preparation. The seniors have senior seminar. We're going to continue that as a class that's scheduled for them, and that the school councils are ready and waiting to help them get their college applications done. And so all of those services will be in place. I think the name of the game there's a lot of names of the games. I feel like I say that all the time. There's the name of the game of flexibility, and being nimble and being fluid. We use those words all the time, and trying to keep a good positive attitude. And the other thing is communication, right? We need to keep communicating. If there's needs that you have, your kids have, that aren't being met, please communicate that to us, and we will do the best we can. And the other thought is really and we've all read this over and over again. There's absolutely no right answers here. There's my husband calling me. Sorry, honey. There's no right answer here. There's no answer that makes us all happy. What works and what is right for one family doesn't work for the other family. And, we've tried to take all those considerations into our decision-making process, but this stinks. It does. We're educators, and we're educators because we love kids. And what I found in the spring was that an educator without kids to educate is kind of lost. I watched my teachers be heartbroken and just didn't know what to do with themselves because they didn't have kids to teach. Excuse me. So we're in this business to educate your kids, and we're AMSA, and we consider ourselves to be a very, very special place because we educate your kids very, very well. AMSA is not a fit for everyone, but we want everyone to feel like they fit at AMSA. So we have made the decision that we feel is best for our community. I feel it in my whole heart and soul. It's a decision that we can live with. We want to help you and your families, but more than anything else, we want to educate your kids to the level that they deserve, because they all deserve to have an education that launches them into the next grade and eventually launches them into a college, a career, or whatever path they decide to follow. So just keep talking to us. The support that we've received has just been outstanding. It means so much to us. We're administrators, we're educators. You don't know us on a personal level, but more and above anything else, we're all just people, right? We're all people who are living through what has been kind of a little bit of a nightmare. And so as a community, we need each other in order to get through what is hopefully the last stretch of this pandemic. And I believe we can do that together. I know, because I've seen already, that we are a stronger education community because of it. The technology that our teachers have learned and the different things that they're embracing in order to help engage your students. What you're going to see this fall is a completely different system than you saw in the spring. We're going to keep perfecting it. We're going to keep making it better. And we want you to communicate, especially through the AMSA AMSA remote learning feedback, AMSA remote learning at amsats.org. And we'll get that out to you again too. So please communicate with us through that and send us any feedback that you have.